Welcome to the FounderVideo podcast, an interview series bringing you the latest and greatest info on B2B marketing, revenue operations, and go-to-market strategy from respected experts. Here is your host, Will Martin.
All right, so we're live for the 14th, episode of the FounderVideo podcast. Today we have Adam Robinson, founder and CEO of retention.com and RB2B. Been doing a lot of noise on LinkedIn with inbound-led-outbound and whatnot. We're here to talk about it. We're here to talk about his experience with retention.com, how he started RB2B, what does it mean for the B2B landscape, and more. So yeah, welcome, Adam.
What is up, Will? I'm happy to be here, and thanks for having me on, man.
Awesome, man. So, I've listened your story already on several podcasts, but I want you to share, kind of like what led you to start talking about what was going on with retention.com back in 2023, and kind of like shift a little bit your strategy. Because for those who don't know, Adam was deeply in B2C, right? And most of your content for the first 12 months on LinkedIn was about B2C stuff and email marketing and whatnot, because retention.com helps with that. But then you made a switch and started talking more so about your experience as a founder, bootstrap founder of a B2B company, which was retention.com, right? And I'm just trying to understand, like, what prompted you to talk about it? Yeah.
So, like, I am not on social media in my personal life. I had not made a single LinkedIn post before October 1st of 2022. And the seed had been planted earlier that year in 2022. So I think in like March or April 2022, I had 6 employees. We were at like 6 or 7 million ARR. And I was listening to this guy who I really admire at this trade show. He was on stage. His name's John Cronstedt. And he was CEO of this company called Kajabi, which like is in the edu space. And like he quit when they did like a $2 billion, Tiger led secondary, like something like that. So the last question the dude interviewing him asked was, if you were at, because he joined Kajabi at 6 million ARR and he left at like 100 or 200 something. He's like, if you were at 6 million ARR sitting there listening in the audience, what's the one thing that you would do? And dude goes, I would post on LinkedIn every day and I would just start today. I was like, that's an interesting thing, So like, that was like the first seed. And then I grabbed him afterwards and I was like, what's that about, man? Like, what, like, I get it, but like, and I think I can guess why, but like, why, And like, I'd watch Russell Brunson in admiration. I didn't really understand the mechanics behind what he was doing, but I sort of got it, And in my opinion, he was doing this massive personal brand, like info product led edutainment. And at the same time, he was like broadcasting his life on social media so people could just felt like he was a good guy and they knew him, and then his product was so good that it just like flowed right down into it. And then Nathan Barry did not do as much founder brand at all. This ConvertKit. Have you ever heard of Nathan Barry? ConvertKit.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was in the email space. But Nathan Barry put his numbers on Baremetrics. By the way, I made a public facing Baremetrics dashboard with all of RB2B's revenue metrics yesterday. It's rb2b.baremetrics.com. You can go check that out. Literally up to the minute, exactly what's going on in our business. All the free signups, all the customers, current MRR, ARR, churn metrics, the whole thing. And like, I've probably looked at that thing in the last 10 years like 500 times. It's just so addicted. It's like we're so voyeuristic, Anyway, so I pulled this guy to the side off the stage, and I'm like, John, like, what is that all about? And he's like, look, he's like, fundamental. He's like, the why behind that comment. He's like, I believe that we are in this like very commoditized world. He's like, look at Amazon. All of the shit that like, if you buy a surge protector right now, it comes from a brand that is all consonants and it gets to you in one day, and like that you used to go to the hardware store and like buy a GE version of that. But like the same factory that is making that is like now just putting these 5 consonants on there and selling it to you for like 5% of the price. And you don't care. And he's like, that's where software is headed, which I also deeply believe, right? Like it is getting, with all of the tools that are coming out and all of the, LLMs and everything, it's like, it's just so much faster to build software than it used to be. And if you get something that works, you will have 100 people copying you very soon, right? So that's sad in a way, but in another way, it's amazing because like brand is a real thing. It's like a real way. So like brand is real, it's powerful, and community is real and powerful also. And he's like, those are so there are businesses that have network effects, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. Most people's don't. Mine does not. If your business does not have inherent network effects, then the only 2 moats are brand and community. And he's like, you basically, with brand and community, it kind of like creates this pull or this like mosquito light into your company. You have people like opting in to be a part of this. And it's because of what you believe, essentially, right? Like, and he's like, so the CEO posting on LinkedIn comes down to this. He's like, if you watch Yellowstone and you watch the whole season of Yellowstone, John Dutton does not have mission, vision, values written on his wall, right? But like, if you watch the whole season, you know what it's like to be a cowboy at John Dutton's ranch and whether or not you'd be interested in that. And he's like, in my opinion, writing on LinkedIn is that, right? Like, you are going to have a ton of people trying to figure out what you're about. And that is the perfect venue to, start illuminating what and why you're doing things. And he's like, for everybody, recruiting, I think, is the most important, just because like you're only as good as the people you can get. And like every single person you hire will look at your LinkedIn profile. And if there's good content to consume there, then they will sell themselves. And like a huge problem that every other company has, you do not have, right? And he's like, if you sort of have a push model on trying to get people in the door, they are not nearly as invested as if they raise their hand and they say, I want to be a part of this. So that was like thing number 1 that happened. And that was in April. And then like fast forward to like September, October. I was going to run this as like a super lean, highly cash flow positive bootstrapped company. And the churn was like a major problem, but like, I thought I could get it to like maybe, 25 or 30 million ARR with like not a lot of people, like under that many people, which is a fantastic business. Then September of 2022, we thought we had found an ideal customer profile that would substantially lower the churn and allow the company to get much larger. So like unicorn territory. And we identified that in the Shopify ecosystem, there's this product called Shopify Plus, which is like the enterprise version of Shopify, quote unquote enterprise. Like, the lesson learned was it's not. But we were like, oh, there's 50,000 stores there. It appears as though like anyone who's a Shopify Plus store loves this. They tell their friends. They, don't ever churn. And I was like, oh, if we really, everyone needs it. They're all going to make money on it. Like the metrics are going to look like Klaviyo, and like this is going to be a couple 100 million, revenue company. Like no question. And it's like our penetration's super low into this universe. What's the quickest way to spread awareness in 2023 or 2022? And the answer is a personal social media profile. And then the question is just like, okay, you got to start somewhere. Like literally had never made a post. Which platform? And these guys were more on Twitter, but the competitive dynamic of content creation on LinkedIn is very different than Twitter. Twitter's like, something like 70% of people that read tweets make tweets, right? Whereas LinkedIn, it's like 2% of people, of active users on LinkedIn, actually create content. So the idea was build 10, 20,000 followers there first, kind of get a feel for what creating social media content was, then move over to Twitter and try to compete there. That's the original idea. And as I said, this product was selling into Shopify stores. So something that, so it's like I work with a ghostwriter because I was just paralyzed. I was like very afraid, like now I always say this, like, I know what I'm good at. Like, I'm good at product. Like, I'm good at marketing. And like, if I think about when I started my first startup in 2013, like the way that I thought about the world and the decisions that I made and how I went about doing things, I'm like I was playing T-ball then, and I'm like a Hall of Fame major leaguer relative to that person back then in every decision that I make, right? So like, my point is, when I know that I don't know what I'm doing, it's very concerning to me, because I understand that there are people that are as good at social media as I am at product and marketing and getting a startup from 0 to 1 and all that stuff, right? And the reason that I'm good at that stuff is because I've been doing it for 12 years, nonstop, banging my head against the wall. That's all I've thought about, besides my family and trying to stay healthy, right? So it's paralyzing to somebody like me, because I'm like, I'm not going to go out there and tweet against LeBron James. Like, I'm not going to waste my time doing that. I have better shit to do with my life, right? So we started on LinkedIn, and by the way, another great book to read, which articulates this vision very well, is Dave Gerhardt's Founder Brand. The problem that I had with it, again, was just this. He's like, oh, just block time off in your calendar and go out there and tweet. I'm like, Dave, like, I love you. I'm not going to do that. I need some help. Somebody understands this game that I don't, right? Like, in a way that I do not, right? So yeah, I worked with this ghostwriter originally named Tommy Clark, who was good and definitely understood the LinkedIn game. And there's a few competing models for building audience on LinkedIn, I think. And Tommy at the time, I don't know what he's doing now, but there's this model I call the Daniel Murray millennial marketer model, where it's like, LinkedIn is an attention platform and your trust platforms are off LinkedIn. And the job of LinkedIn is to get eyeballs to move people to your trust platforms, like a newsletter or podcast. And the content really doesn't have anything to do with each other. Like, Daniel's serving up memes all day long, and he's got 1 million followers, and it works for him, right? And it's just it's like so hard to put myself back there, because like I understand everything so well now that like, like if I heard that today, I'd be like, okay, that's one way to do it. But like, there's this whole other way of approaching LinkedIn that I think is much more powerful, but it took me a year to learn that. So anyway, I also have this other thing with video, which is a great story. Like, I don't think so. Video is very powerful. I think people would agree with that statement. I think people would be like, yeah, influencers are powerful. Like, look at the Kardashians. It's like, I think they know that, but I just don't think that they know how hypnotized people get from just listening to someone speak for hours and hours and hundreds of hours, right? Like, it is literally impossible unless you hate this person, right? Like, if you even sort of agree with what someone's saying and they're speaking intelligently, and you listen to their face and you sort of, gestures and like whatever else, like, their status will keep rising in your head until they are some type of God, and you can't stop it. And it happened to me.
Totally.
It happened to me. So how did it happen to me? Before I started retention.com, I had my first startup was called Robley Email Marketing. I was able to get it to 3 million ARR fairly quickly, and then it got stuck. and it was stuck for 4 years. And when you have a SaaS that's stuck, it was like shrinking at 0.5% a month, but it was cash flow positive. It was kind of like a strangely comfortable but very uncomfortable situation, like very comfortable in the short term, but like very uncomfortable in the long term, you know? So like I was just like desperately reaching for like any way to grow this thing. And I speak to founders that are in that position now. And I just like remember so clearly what it was like. Like they would listen to people like me talking about things that I'm doing and that are working, and you would go try them and it wouldn't work. And the reason why is because your product sucks. Like, and it's very hard to admit that to yourself because it's what you spend your entire life on. Sucks is a hard word, but that's a reality. Like if you don't have product market fit and you don't have a product that has word of mouth on its own, there is nothing you can do to speed it up. If you have strong word of mouth, then anything that you do will work. Like that is it. And I know because I've been on both sides of it, and I'm fucking more on the it's working side. Like anything that I do with our B2B will work. Every single thing that I try works. Nothing that I tried with Robly works, right? So anyway, I'm like reaching for stuff that, you know, could help me get this going, right? Like you run into a Facebook ad agency owner and they're like, oh, we can run Facebook ads. Like Facebook ads will work. It's like, no, they won't. Right? But they worked with retention.com. Why? Because the product was good, you know? So anyway, my brother sent me a webinar. He's also an entrepreneur. And he was like, dude, Robly, my company at the time, is an example in this dude's webinar of what not to do. Like literally one of his slides was like the wrong way to advertise on Facebook. Cause like some Facebook advertising should be convinced me to do it. And, you know, basically it was like, he's like, why am I getting shown a 14-day free trial offer, right? Like just a visual graphic card with a CTA button for a company I've never heard of and I have no idea what they do. That is never going to work, right? Fair point. Yeah, fair point. So anyway, I watched this dude's webinar. His name's Mitch Harper. He founded a company called BigCommerce, which was like a Shopify alternative. And at the time they were kind of neck and neck. Shopify really crushed it in the last, this was 2017, right? So Shopify has decimated it the last 7 years. BigCommerce, the direction they took, like not so much, but like at the time, so like I watched this webinar and at the time I thought the solution for my stuck email marketing app, Robly, was to go above MailChimp. That was what was in my mind. What I didn't know is that 10 other people had already done it, but like, that was what I thought I had to do. So I watched this guy's webinar. I kind of liked it. You know, I like what he had to say. So I told my brother, I'm like, hey man, do you want to just like split this $3,000 annual membership? Because like, I think this guy's pretty smart. My brother's like, yep. So I bought it and I wasn't really doing much at the time. Like, I mean, work-wise, somebody was managing Robly and I was trying to figure out what was next and how to grow it and wasn't full-time. So I spent like 10 days. There were 15 courses in there. So I spent 10 days watching this guy teach me about business for 100 hours over the course of 2 weeks. It was all I did, full-time job. And I get done and I'm like, I found out this guy does like, it was a high ticket coaching funnel, right? So kind of like the attention, he's on Instagram, basically like, you know, showing off his fancy life and telling people that he's better than them. And if they give him all his money, then like, you know, he'll tell them the one thing, like how they can
the usual,
like, right? Like totally that deal. But like, it really hit me because I'm like, oh, he knows how to like, you know, he's a SaaS guy, like knows how to like go up market and like this, that, and the other. So, you know, $4,000 an hour, you know, for 1 hour per month, like this ridiculous thing. I'm like, I need him to be my coach. I need like, this guy has the answers, right? Which is what, again, it's like what this makes people think about you. Like if you looked at my, like, if no one knew that I was a LinkedIn guy and you looked at these messages that people send me every day, you'd be like, why are they asking you that? Right? But like, it sort of makes sense if you know that I'm like this big LinkedIn guy now. But like, you know, if like one of, you know, somebody from my business life 2 years ago, like if they looked through my LinkedIn inbox, they would laugh hysterically. It's like, why would this person think that you know that? Or why would they want your opinion on this, right? So, but anyway,
yeah.
So here's the punchline of the story, right? So like I track this guy down and he's got all sorts of like psychology in this funnel, like, oh, I'm booked, apply, like there's a wait list, like all this bullshit or whatever. Then he gets me on a call like this, and the strangest feeling I have ever had was talking to this man and feeling like he was literally my best friend because I had spent the last 2 weeks with him, 20, fucking 12 hours a day. And he's talking to me like I'm a stranger. It was so, I was like,
Parasocial
I was like,
relationships.
I know where you vacation. I know your wife. Like, I know how many kids, I know your kids. I know their names. Like, I know your habits. I know how you manage your calendar. Like, I fucking know everything about this guy, right? Like, I dug on it. So, like, at that moment, I was like, I don't know what just happened to me, but like, when the opportunity presents itself to take advantage of what this guy just did to me, I'm fucking doing it. Right? So like that is the really long story of why video. I can't
Yeah,
tell you exactly what it's doing to people, but it is doing a lot more than text. And that is what it
100%.
is doing, right? Like, and dude, like I go to events now, like this LinkedIn thing happened very quickly for me, but like it happened in a big way. And like I go to events in the marketing space or in like the SaaS founder sort of space or whatever. And like people walk up to me and start talking, they don't even say their name. You know what I mean? Like it's literally like
Yeah,
we have been best friends for the prior 2 months in talking to each other every day.
it's crazy. Yeah.
Like so this is what I am most, it's like I put a post about it last week. This is what I am most interested in about this. I think in B2C, people really understand it. I think Hormozi understands it like mega. I think Russell Brunson understood it because like the type of content he's bringing out, it wasn't sales content. Like if you looked at his Instagram, it was like him like walking out of wrestling practice for his kids or whatever. You know what I mean? It was like just making people feel like they were his best friend. Um, don't think anyone gets it in B2B. I think it's like the most powerful thing about these platforms. It allows you to create human to human connection at this unbelievable scale. And you can't measure that part of it. You can measure the Daniel Murray part of it, right? You can measure throwing a meme up, how many impressions it gets, how many people it drove to your newsletter, how many people open that newsletter, whatever. But like you can't measure what I believe that I am doing. So it's like I believe that through my deep thought leadership posts, I am very clearly articulating how I view the world, business, go to market, these topics related to the technology I sell. I'm bringing people along on this wild journey of starting startups. I have a lot of experience. I'm a guy who just bootstrapped 22 million ARR in 4 years, and I'm showing you every single step of how to start something from zero. I would have killed for that 5 years ago. That's how I know it's valuable, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm doing it, I'm telling you with my face, right? Like, so I think the combination of all of that and what I'm willing to say are things that other people are not willing to say. I have no investors. My fucking chief of staff hates it because she's like, when you talk about like problems in the business, it makes the employees uneasy. When you talk about firing people, it makes them whatever. I'm like, Kelly, I love you, but the employees are not the audience for this. If they can't take it, they need to stop listening. But by the way, they should be happy about it because I'm not going to blow smoke up their ass and then like do a big layoff, right? Like, I'm telling it like it is. So that is,
Totally. The story of how you got into video.
yeah,
I wanted to ask you because you mentioned multiple times the story, like how you bootstrapped retention.com. You mentioned 6 employees, 7 million ARR, and then 22 million ARR. I know that you sort of bloated the team with for sales and
yeah,
whatnot, but there was a point at which retention.com was at 8 figures and above, if I'm not mistaken, and under 10 people or something.
yeah,
I know that you mentioned that at that point it was about to break and everybody was doing everything, but like if you were to not necessarily 1-2 million in revenue per employee, but nowadays with the amount of inefficiency that we've seen in most SaaS companies, I think it's worth exploring, like, how can you get to that level of revenue per employee, like close to the million or 2 million even, which would be awesome, right? I think now with AI and a lot of, not only a lot AI, but like if you leverage content, right, as, or inbound-led, outbound, whatever you want to call it, which is kind of the most efficient way to go to market, I think, mainly because the results you can get, of course, they're not directly tied to the effort you put in, right? Like you create the same amount of content, you just reach way more people exponentially, right? But apart from that, apart from creating content, which I think you made clear that it's a big pillar for sure. You know, what advice would you give, or like what do you think what made you able to run retention.com up until that point with so few employees?
Yeah, so I think you asked several questions throughout there. So I'm going to hit the
Yeah.
first one first. How do you get to 1 to 2 million ARR per employee? So like, some people hate when I say this. I'm going to say it till I die. The only way you're going to get anywhere above 1 or 2 million ARR is if your product is fantastic. Like, it is, something about it is new, something about it is different. Maybe it's priced radically different, but it's the same. It has to be something that, if you're looking at your target audience and you articulate the one sentence of what it is, you see their eyes light up. You physically see enthusiasm on their face, right? And then when you launch this product, you know, because it's just growing on its own, that there's substantial. Let me just show you what this looks like.
This podcast is brought to you by FounderVideo. We'll cut your LinkedIn ads costs by at least 50% with natural-looking creatives that prospects actually want to consume. Just have an expert in your C-suite show up to a 90-minute interview once a month and let us take care of the rest. Turn LinkedIn ads from an accepted line item expense into a scalable revenue channel that fits into your go-to-market strategy. Book a free consultation at foundervideo.io.
Please do.
Yeah.
I think it's great that you published that, by the way. Like, that is building in public, right? Like,
yeah. So
putting
like,
up the numbers.
So like, this is 14 weeks in, right? In the last 30 days, it's grown 84%. I've, beyond creating content, I've not spent a dollar getting customers in any way. 152 people signed up yesterday. We have no fucking idea where they came from. Today, already, it's 9 a.m. 40 people have signed up for free accounts, and I have 3 new customers, right? Like, this is what I'm talking about. That's an extreme example of what word of mouth is, but like, the only way, and by the way, like it is possible, like you can make your product better, like you can radically change how you're going to market, your pricing, whatever, like it, but it has to be, the first step is the package of what you are doing has to be jaw-dropping remarkable, right? And Get Emails, which is now retention.com, when we launched that in 2019, the one sentence was, we'll identify your anonymous website visitors and give you email addresses if they don't fill out a form, right? For the people that we were talking to at the time, they had never heard of anything like that. They thought that the opt-in email address was the only way to get someone's email. So it's like, I'll give you emails, but of people that didn't fill out a form. That was totally new white space. Like, yeah, there were a couple tiny vendors doing it, but they were like, it was a horrible package. They were not good marketers. It was like impossible to use, but the technology was there. That's my point, right? Like with RB2B, like there was a couple other people doing it before I showed up. No one knew that, you know, because they weren't doing it the right way. Like Warmly has this product and they say that they do it and they prospect to everyone who engages in my LinkedIn posts. And then they get these people on a demo and they pitch them Drift and Zoom Info alternative, basically. They pitch them a chatbot, right? Like, and they don't understand what's wrong with that. I'm like, and by the way, like I know this guy, Max, like he's a young guy. He just reminds me a lot of like myself when I was his age, like, you know, but like it is not, it's the
So
package has to be, it's just got to work, right? So anyway, that is step one. You have to have product market fit, and a very good proxy for it is you have your business is growing on its own. You don't know why, you don't know how. It's not paid ads. It's just going, right? So that's step one. And then really the only other thing you have to do is avoid everyone trying, they're not trying to do it, but everyone will make you feel inadequate for not hiring people. I know because I've been there. We actually get emails before I started hiring people. Now we have 60 people, which is a big challenge, but like we got to 12 million with 6, right? We were definitely, all of us were filled to the brim. It wasn't, we were all kind of like co-founder level productive. Like it was a killer team, but like it's possible, right? Like you can do that.
did I wonder if any of those 6 had equity, or
Yeah,
like apart from you, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
all of them.
Yeah, the 4 of the 6.
4 of the 6. Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
So, yeah, the 4 that were, 4 of the 6 had equity. So like, I just remember so vividly, like being on this roof deck at the Four Seasons at this guy's birthday. His like, and by the way, like I'm running a business that is like generating $6 million of earnings, right? Like we're pocketing that, right? Like after very healthy base salaries. And like I remember this girl, these 2 guys had like just done a big round. She's like asking me about my company. She's like, well, how many people do you have? And I'm like, 6. She's like, oh, you're just getting started. And this is like some line employee at Upwork, but like she was like hot. So it kind of made me feel inadequate or something, and like I'm telling you, that is one of the worst things about it. Like you have to deal with that,
Man, who cares? Like
Yeah,
that's
no, but like it's a real thing though. You know what I mean? Like
no, for sure.
it is like one of the things that is pushing you. So like there's that, right? And by the way, like I learned my lesson. This business I am keeping super lean for a super long time. And there's a few, you alluded to a few reasons why it's more possible for this business than it might have been for others, which we can talk about later. But like, that's number one. Number two, like there's like other forces other than that are like trying to get you to hire people. Like if you speak to anyone that like quote unquote like so there's the way to do it, which we're talking about right now, this like very lean, very sort of bootstrapped whatever. And then the entire other the other side of the thing is like the kind of like venture, it's like I don't know how many employees a normal tech company has at 10 million ARR. I think at least 50, at 10 million.
Yeah.
Like
Sometimes
you
even
probably
more,
raised
but
at
yeah.
least on average 30 million, probably 50 or more, and you got at least 50 employees. So like it's just an entirely different way of thinking. Like I'm reading like posts from
Yeah, but
Jason Lemkin about like having a CMO who has 5 direct reports at a 2 million ARR company, right? Like, it's just so like it's so
it doesn't make any
crazy to me
sense.
that they even think that is something, right? Like
That's just
I
yeah,
don't think something is even viable until it's like 5 or 6 million ARR in my head, right? It's like,
totally.
this is still very experimental. And I think that's why, I think the reason why is like, I actually got stuck at 3. And like, I've read Lemkin before and he's got this thing, which I kind of like, but it's like 0 to 1, impossible. 1 to 10, improbable. 10 to 100, inevitable. Like,
Totally.
which maybe that's true for enterprise SaaS. I think that probably is very true for enterprise SaaS. Like if you can actually get to 10 and you have revenue expansion and like it's land and expand and you sort of figure your sales motion out, then it probably is inevitable you get to 100. But like my businesses have all been high churn and like whatever. So
Right.
Anyway, the summary of all of that is you got to have a great fucking product and you have to restrain yourself from everything in the world telling you you need more people. Everything will tell you that, right? Like there's a whole bunch of opportunities that are going to present themselves that you also need people to help with. Everything's going to tell you you need more heads. And like, you just have to say no. Like, an example so I want to tell a story about, so like we sell to these Shopify stores and I think they're like, in terms of the degree of difficulty of business in general, I think the easiest businesses are just starting a consulting business, doing what you did for the last 10 years, right? Like you've got some clients, they want you to help out, like maybe you like work for your old company as a contractor and 2 other people, fractional. Like that's the easiest business, I think. The hardest business is sending people to Mars. No question about it, right? And I would say SaaS is probably like a 6 or 7 out of 10, depending on what it is. Like some marketplace businesses are like maybe 8 or 9, right? Like Crossbeam, I don't know if you've ever heard of that business. Like it's like this partner ecosystem business, and you had to like onboard all of the vendors before there were even use cases for them to like, sharing. Yeah, it's super high degree of difficulty. Yeah, super high, like Facebook, super high degree of difficulty, right? Like there's 2-sided marketplaces are hard. Anyway, I think that these successful Shopify guys are some of the best entrepreneurs that there are because they have to deal in physical products and the digital world, right? So like they have to be product people, brand people, and killer ad tech people, and like digital conversion rate optimization, like as pillars, right? Whereas like SaaS, like, I don't know, man, I have an incredible CTO, but like, it's not hard for us to build really great shit, like, like we've done it a few times. Like, it's just not as hard as like creating like, a canned beverage and shipping it all around or whatever, right? Like, and managing this fucking supply chain and all that shit. So anyway, these guys I think are the best. One of the best of them is this guy named Ryan Babenzian. He has a showerhead company called Jolie. And the story of it is so great. Like, I don't want to tell the whole thing, but long story short, he had sold a company before, and he had just wanted to create something that was like, he sold a shoe company, and he wanted something that was like one size fits all, and like, sort of it had like a recurring model and like one other thing. Anyway, these guys like kind of looked at the showerhead market. There wasn't a dominant brand there yet, and like they were like Apple for showerheads, right? Like just make a really well-designed, beautiful, sort of a brand, make a brand around a showerhead. Didn't exist. And within 18 months with 3 full-time people, they got to 50 million run rate selling fucking showerheads, and like some crazy amount of annual recurring revenue at $99 per year for a filter, like, which costs them $2, right? Like some insane amount, and people don't cancel that, right? Like, so how did he do it? In a way, the same way I'm doing it. He was not founder led, but he harnessed the power of organic social media through a micro influencer strategy on TikTok. They cold DM'd 20,000, influencers with like 5 to 50,000 followers, sent anyone a showerhead who responded to them. And they're like, if you like this, post about it. They got 30,000 pieces of UGC put out about Jolie last year. $0 beyond sending the showerhead, right? So like that is harnessing the power of organic social media. Why is organic social media so powerful right now? Well, somebody sent me, one of my LinkedIn fans sent me this book last week. I wouldn't recommend reading the whole thing. It's Gary Vaynerchuk's Day Trading Attention. The first 10 pages articulated something that I've been feeling very clearly. So social media used to be connection based in content distribution. You would watch a YouTube video and they were trying to get you to subscribe, because the more YouTube subscribers you had, the more people would get distributed your content. TikTok came along and they had an interest based algorithm. All of a sudden, the relative importance of your followers went down by 90%, and the relative importance of your content went up by 10x. Your content being great, right? Great content had infinite distribution in this new ecosystem. At the same time, the general population was getting saturated on social media time. So the platforms had to war with each other. And what war do you fight? You fight an interest war. That's the only way you're going to get somebody to come over to your platform. So the platforms have been slowly migrating towards interest-based algorithms. LinkedIn is the laggard, but it's still kind of heading there. So what does that mean? That means if you can create great social content, you not only have the potential for infinite distribution, you can immediately put dollars behind that great content and amplify that, which compounds exponentially. So like, I can make a great thought leadership post on LinkedIn. I have a gift for this, right? Any other SaaS company, like, what am I getting served in my newsfeed? Timmy at Capital puts a picture of 5 guys in yarmulkes in my feed. I do not care. But you know what I mean? Like I'm telling you, like, I don't give a fuck. Like, Rippling will drop a carousel of businesses in Austin that use Rippling. Like, I don't fucking care, right? Like, I don't care at all. Like, you know what I do care about? Like, some CEO that's getting his nuts blown off in the same way I am at the same time, experiencing the same pain. Like, and the amount of attention that goes to that versus these 5 chubby Jewish guys is like, I think it's at least 10x, right? Like, so, and then LinkedIn launched the thought leadership ad. So like, I can not only get all of these organic impressions that people who are potentially competing with me at some point cannot, I can amplify the best posts at a rate that is so much cheaper than pushing these shitty ads in front of people, that it is a total unfair advantage. So that is what allows, I think it is a key to bootstrapping that exists today that did not exist 5 years ago.
Tell me about it. That's what we've been doing. Thought leader ads, and what you just described right there, basically what we do, like both ourselves and for clients. But I wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned in the one episode, I don't remember which one, but you talked about the declining response rates with outbound, right? And you know, the shift to inbound-led-outbound and whatnot. And so I wanted to ask you if you think, this is an egg and chicken type of dilemma, but what came first, the decline in response rates or the decline in deliverability? Is the decline in deliverability caused by the decline in response rates because of market saturation? Or I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. I don't think there's a correct answer to this. But do you what do you think has been the biggest agent, or reason why the response rates are so low, and most importantly, they are diminishing over time? And how do you see that evolving?
I think that automation played like a huge part in the response rate crisis. So Aaron Ross, who, believe it or not, reached out to me, and he's coming on my live event on July 2nd to debate whether the predictable revenue model is dead or not. It's 2 p.m. Central Time on July 2nd. Me and Aaron Ross going head to head. It's being moderated by John Barrows, the biggest sales trainer out there. And we are going to debate. Basically, my argument is, I'm listening to the book right now while I'm running. It's like, if I do these steps, I will get 0 demos, right? Like if I just go down his checklist of how you sell, I will get 0 people to write back, right? And his argument is effectively going to be like, that book was written 14 years or 12 years ago. Like, it's different now. Like, you know, here's what. But I'm genuinely interested I'm genuinely interested to hear what he has to say, because like my observation in like talking to a bunch of other people is that here's my, so back to your question, right? Like, what do I think is causing it? So it's like, if you asked me, whether more emails or fewer emails were going to get sent in 2025 than 2024. I would say more. And like, how many more? Like probably like 5x. I don't know, like a lot more. Like people are going to set, because like one of the fundamental problems of this is like the response, the behavioral response to a lack of response rates at the organization level is to just do more activity. Right? So like that makes the problem worse. Automation makes the problem worse. So like I think more emails will get sent by fewer people inevitably, like for till the end of time. And then Gmail thinks that's a shitty experience, and they're really smart, and they're just going to keep making their filters better. Like Outlook's a little behind them, Yahoo's a little behind them, but like they're all trying to sort of stop the problem from their side. And meanwhile, people like you and me are getting so sick. It's like I just ignore it all now. Like I don't even know. Actually, I'll tell you, it's like part of what I love about inbound-led-outbound is so it's like this whole go-to-market motion that I have. I wanted to go to the extreme and be like, if response rates go to 0, how will we sell software?
So
right?
it is a go-to-market motion. I was about to ask you, like, is inbound-led-outbound a go-to-market motion?
Yeah. So
We got it. It
I
is.
mean,
Okay.
as I phrase it is, right? This is the iteration for RB2B, right? It's like Santosh and I create all of this thought leadership content, right? We're also doing what I call like the SaaS Yacht Club pirate email strategy of like 50 domains, like, whatever. And it's all coming from me, So I'm trying to get site visits to then retarget these people in any way I can. LinkedIn, email, like whatever. Like that's kind of the motion. It's like, and I'm doing it through LinkedIn content creation, getting on other people's shows, doing keynotes, and cold email. Those are the main channels. And then doing this live event once a week. But those are like super fans. Those are not, it feels like it's kind of the same people every week, and it's like, whatever. So that's not really driving. That's like doing something else. It's like trying to stoke the word of mouth, like the core. So,
And that's also the source of everything, right? Because from that live, you get the clips for LinkedIn.
yeah, I mean, that's a Chris Walker model. I haven't nailed that quite yet. My LinkedIn machine is actually quite inefficient, but it's good, and I'm more ambitious than he is. Like, let's go back to Chris Walker in a second. So here's one of my points about this founder brand thing. It's like the bigger your profile gets and the more trust and authority that you have, even in a world of 0 response rates, if someone's read 5 of my posts and I email them, they'll probably write back. They might tell me respectively, no thanks, but that's a reply that they were just going to ignore before. So like, that's like another power of it. It's like, there's so many amazing things about being huge on organic social media if it's in your ideal customer profile. So Russell Brunson actually said this. It's like the dream situation in where a founder brand will work the best is if you actually are who you're selling to, but you're like 5 years ahead of them. You know what I mean? Like you're just like a more successful version of them.
Of your buyer.
And you're putting edutainment out. He's like, it's just this dream situation with how the world's set up. So yeah, I think, the contraction in response rates coming from every side, which is why like in so many, like software companies especially, so many software companies have so much money to push that if you can create great, or if you can be the best at organic content, it's like people are going to absorb it so much more in a world where so many other people are it's like this. I need to figure out a way to articulate this better, but it's like the pushing is going to get so much more expensive because these people have endless pockets, right?
Yep.
And the inventory for pushing is fixed, right? There's only so much space in someone's inbox, and there's only so many ad units on LinkedIn. and more people are going to go after them as everything else stops working as well. If you can be the best at organic, it's pulled, right? It's like a breath of fresh air from this push, and you're enjoying a paradigm of cost of awareness that only people who can create great organic social content can possibly access.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're relegated to this incredibly expensive customer acquisition thing.
100%. I'll ask you about that later. Like, why do you think software is overpriced? Which I think you're absolutely right on that. And I think one of the reasons is because most of the people that build these software usually don't know how to sell it, but whatever. I think before that though, you mentioned something pretty interesting. You mentioned you're more ambitious than Chris Walker. I'm
more ambitious with my content than
develop on that.
So I will. And by the way, like, I'm friends with Chris. Like,
I know.
would have this conversation with him. So, like, this is my interpretation of what Chris Walker is doing. He has these incredible foundational views about mid-market and enterprise SaaS marketing and some problems that it has. And he has built content pillars around them. And if you look, I've looked at a lot of Chris's content because, like, I think he's incredible, like, in so many ways at doing this. And I've ripped off a lot of this playbook. Like, that man has the ability to talk about, he's been talking about the same shit for 5 years, like 80% overlap over 5 years. And he rotates another, 20% new in every year. But, like, same shit. And then you read one of his posts and you think that it's new. And then you realize at the end of it, it's like, no, man, he's just talking about multi-touch attribution again. Like
totally.
It's amazing, but he's amazing at it, right? Like, saying the same thing over and over and over again. And I think the reason that flywheel works is because his super fans that are going to that event, they are like devout believers in these pillars. And they just want to understand his thoughts even deeper. So he gets them into this forum and they ask him basically clarifying questions about these pillars that they all believe in. And then he just sits there and raps about it in a new way, right? And then that's generating his posts. So I think that the upside is it is the pain, it is the pain they're all feeling. And it does just he doesn't spend a lot of money on it. He doesn't spend a lot, relative to what I'm doing, he doesn't spend a lot of time on it. I don't think that he has, so, like, the breadth of what I cover is much wider. It's not narrow pillars. Like, I'm talking about all sorts of shit if you, like, go back 6 months. And starting on Saturday, actually, so I made a docuseries last year. I don't know if you know that or not. So I thought, so things that, like I'm really into things that you can't measure. Very into these things, right? Like this thing about video that I told you about. Like it's so powerful, and I know it is, but you can't.
Yeah, but you're not in it because it's not measurable, right? Like, that's not a reason why you would do it. You like it because the fact that it's unmeasurable, it means that it grows exponentially. And long as it grows exponentially, you don't care if it's measurable or not. Am I right? Exactly. Or what's the...
But in general, I'm, like, fascinated by these things that aren't measurable because I think I think that less attention is going to them than should. And I think that more attention goes to things that can be measured than should. So, like, the competition in and around things that are being measured is much higher than things that cannot, right? So, I made this docuseries. It was super expensive. It was super high quality. It was like, I'm really happy with the product, and I'm really proud of the girl who did it. I just think it was so cool, like, what she did. And people would say things, and like at the time I put it out, my LinkedIn audience was 20% of the size it is now, and they weren't thirsty for the content like they are now, because I was trying to write for e-commerce stores, and I'm not an e-commerce store, and I wasn't putting out good stuff. Like, that's just the reality of it. This whole paradigm that we were talking about with the interest-based algorithm, like, I wasn't feeding the algorithm what the audience wanted. I knew it. I didn't know how to fix it. Now I do. Anyway, now I have a huge and thirsty audience, right? So I hired this girl, and like it took us a while to figure out how we were, like, originally my thought was like just wild work in public. I'm going to publicize every single internal call I'm on, like blah, 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 which no one wants to see that, you know, but like, starting on tomorrow, we're going to drop the first, it's like the problem with that sequential season on LinkedIn is that LinkedIn is not a sequential platform. So it'll serve you episode 12 without any episodes before it, and you won't know what you're looking at. You know what I mean? Whereas it'll serve me episode 9, and it'll serve someone else episode 1, and it'll do it all. So it's hard to have that be the primary platform to consume an episode on. So, or an episodic series on. So, but this girl can make great video. And like, I knew it was great because like, even in my less thirsty audience that was smaller, people would write things like, this is just the best business content I've ever seen. like no one is, you know what I mean? Like, this is so much better than anything else anyone's doing. So I was like, that's a superpower. I got to hire this girl and figure out how to like do that. So starting tomorrow.
Who's that girl, if I may ask?
Her name's Christy Ellington. She has a studio called EC2 Studios. And yeah, she's working for me full time now. And like starting tomorrow, we're putting out what are we call them standalone narrative posts. So it's like very deep storytelling, but within the character limit of a LinkedIn post. And it has a high quality video asset, not just a talking head, that looks like you're watching Netflix. That is like a show, right? So one a week. And like an example of a story, right? Like we sold my first business for $10 million. 2 weeks before we sold it, one of the engineers in Argentina deleted the code base and we didn't have a backup. 2 weeks before we were about to get $10 million. So like, it's the story of like how for the next 16 hours, like I was beside myself walking around Austin with my dog. Like I couldn't even think. And my CTO was dealing with the founder of the backup company, trying to figure out if they could find the backup in the corrupted file. They didn't, you know, and eventually, you know, moral of the story is they found it 12 hours in, you know, 4 hours later, the whole thing was back up and like, whatever. But like things like that, right? And the longer you're on these journeys, the more crazy stories like that you have. And like, Chris is not trying to do anything like that, right? Like that is like so much higher level, you know what I mean? It's like and this is like me trying to do what I perceive that Russell Brunson did. Like I'm trying to make everyone feel like they're my friends. If I can get people telling my stories to each other, right? Like I feel like I've won the game in this unquantifiable way, right? So it's super expensive. It's very inefficient. It is, you know, whatever. And then we're going to make another season of $1 Billion Challenge in the fall. And I'm actually trying to find a YouTube consultant because I'm just like, dude, like, how do I grow the founder brand? Because it's so powerful. And I have this LinkedIn guy who's amazing, but he's not a YouTube guy. And I need someone who's like him for YouTube that can help me program a YouTube channel, right? Because it's like, I know the ideas that I can build audience around. I have audience that I can send there, but I don't know how to properly contextualize media for YouTube. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
You mentioned it's inefficient. Why would you say like? Is it really?
So if you look at like Chris Walker is like absolute machine. He like. We talked about how he gets his content. It's literally people asking him questions, and then he goes through clips. He pulls out a clip, and then he writes the post, and he posts one every day. And then he's paying $3,000 a month for video editing. His $120,000 a year marketing ops person at his agency, as a side hustle, does all the distribution. So it's not 120. He's like $3,000 a month for editing, probably like another 1 or 2 to get it all posted. And then one other thing that was like a drop in the bucket. So he's like hardly spending anything. I'm spending like 5 times as much as that on all these people, you know? But
I mean, I would argue you don't need to spend that much to build a founder brand, but
yeah. But like, I'm trying to like do a much bigger thing, right? Like when you see this video tomorrow, you'll be like, I understand why he wants to spend money on that. Like, there is absolutely no way you could tie back ROI to it. There's no way, if we weren't super cash flow positive, that I would be doing stuff like this. But I think that it's doing something that nothing else can do. Like it is
No, I
doing
totally.
this type of storytelling that is only possible in a way that a documentary is
That's
shot, right?
yeah.
So
No, I see
there's
that.
going to be that content line. We're going to, at the same time, basically be filming video of that grade and do a monthly work in public recap at the end of every month. It basically shows everything I did during that month, right? And like, you can look at the barometrics and everything and like whatever. And then we're doing an episodic season at the end of the year and a YouTube channel. So, and like, by the way, like Chris posts his stuff on YouTube, but like, this
Yeah,
is
I
what I'm
know. And
talking about.
TikTok.
Like, he's not doing it. Like, Chris should have, Dan Martell is this guy who has a SaaS following. He's like a SaaS info product biz, basically. And he's YouTube and Instagram, and he's got 200,000 followers on YouTube, and his whole audience is SaaS. Like, Chris has 5,000 followers on YouTube because he's taking his content that works on LinkedIn and he's just placing it on YouTube. Does that make sense? He's not
Yeah,
making YouTube content. How you
agreed.
need
No,
YouTube.
you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's a whole different thing, as you said, right?
Yeah,
Like you need
exactly.
someone to understand how to produce the content for
Yeah, and
YouTube,
like
right?
my whole thing is like,
Yeah.
and like, look, I keep saying it's like Hermosi gets it, right? Like he's like, I'm going to give away awesome free edutainment, and then it's going to lead me to whatever I want, right? If I give away awesome free edutainment about SaaS, sales, marketing, whatever, and my core offer is something that is freemium it's free for 90% of the people that are going to be watching this, it just works together. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't. It's like that's it's like I don't even have to ask. It's like people are going to look. They're going to see this is what I do, and they're going to go consume it, right? They're going to go buy it. They're going to go enter the product funnel, and if they qualify, they'll pay for it, right? So like, I'm so motivated to just grow this founder brand because just awareness and trust leads to people investigating who I am, which leads them to my core offer, which is incredibly ridiculous and compelling. That like, I just want to make the brand bigger, right? Like,
Yeah. I wanted to ask you that. Do you think inbound-let-outbound as a GTM motion only works for PLG or like mass adoption, large scale, low CS, low service, low touch type of products, or can it work for like
so a weird thing about the
enterprise?
tech is that the most value comes from very low traffic, very high ACV, high touch, because
Yep.
it's the repeat visitors on those websites that are so valuable. But the weird thing is like, so I was very conflicted about this in the beginning. Like, we can't really capture more value from them. The weird thing about this business is, on average, within buckets, a SaaS that has their act together and is farther along will have much more traffic than one that does not. The exceptions are PLG companies who have way more traffic and way low and extremely small ACV, and kind of like the volume pricing doesn't make sense for them. And then the other extreme of super enterprise, very low traffic, very, very high ACV, very high touch, and the volume pricing doesn't make sense for them. However, we ended up going with volume-based pricing because I think that those two extremes are something like 10 or 15% each. And everybody else kind of falls into the buckets, right? Like somebody who was resolving 2,000 visitors per month, they all sort of look the same. They don't buy like enterprises. They like are running some traffic campaigns, like, you know what I mean? And so anyway,
Yeah, but I meant like your
the
playbook of like
go-to-market
creating.
motion, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn in particular, I think there's like levels of it working, and then there's definitions of what it is, right? So like the perfect thing is the situation I'm in, and it's the situation Russell Brunson was in. I am who I'm selling to. In many cases, I'm farther along. And then the people that I'm selling to are on these platforms, right? That, early stage founders, salespeople, and like demand gen marketers, like they do their job on LinkedIn to a large extent. Like they're in the middle of all of it, right? So they're just there consuming the content. So that's perfect alignment. If you're in that position and you sell a super high ACV product, fuck yeah, it's going to work, but like, that's because of that alignment, right? If you sell a super high, so if you sold a PLG product to elementary school teachers, posting on LinkedIn like I do is not going to work for you, because your elementary school teachers are not going to read it. It's not going to create awareness, which then leads to them researching you, which then leads to whatever. You might be able to like find influencers of those people and work with them to create the organic social media content that then gets them to click through or whatever. It's a more complicated motion. It might like something more like the Jolie guy did with the shower heads, right? Like some micro influencer strategy, but like my strategy is not going to work for you. So does inbound-let-outbound work for everyone? Like not in the same way that I'm doing it. Is it confined to either PLG or high ACV? Like, I don't think so. I think like, however, another way of thinking about it is this. Like, I don't know a marketing channel today, meaning, cold email, influencer, like SEO, marketing marketplace websites, like whatever, where someone would get any type of impression or messaging from you, be interested, and not immediately go look at your website. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Being able, so like kind of what the go-to-market motion allows you to do is it like allows you to basically give some sort of SDR or BDR the tools to make all of those other things that you're doing work more efficiently. The things that I'm focused on might be different than, the whatever of the 14 channels you're focused on, but like if what you're doing is working, you're doing some marketing in some of those channels, right? Like, like I was talking to a guy who sold for ADP, the big payroll company. And he's like 70% of ADP's revenue comes from this world of like accountants, like small shop accountants. And it's super overpriced because the accountant gets kickbacks, right? So like trying to undercut ADP in that network of people will never work, because there's this incentive for them to go with the highest price vendor, right? And there's a whole bunch of trust, and like it's huge, they've been around forever and like all this stuff. But like that's just sort of it's like if I were selling, if I had something like JustWorks, for example, right, which is like the tech version of ADP that's lower priced and user friendly and all that shit, like I could definitely grow JustWorks in the way that I'm growing, because founders and HR people are on LinkedIn,
So would you say, sorry, that is possible then, because you mentioned inbound-led-outbound as a GTM motion, it's not confined to PLG or whatever, or high ACV, then you think it's possible then to sell at a VC scale with inbound-led-outbound without having to overprice software? Like,
I
because,
mean, I just
yeah.
think it's a disruptive and very efficient way of doing it. And like every market is different. It has its own competitive dynamics. It has its own existing incumbents. with their existing pricing and their existing motions and their existing channels and all that stuff. You know, I just think it like, you know, so the whole motion, I think the motion itself is not just a prescription. I think based upon the situation, it's slightly different for everyone, right? But the idea that you're trying to drive site visits and then get this intent signal and then market incredibly hard to those people once you have it is, I think, sound, you know, and like, why wouldn't you? I think you should search for other intent signals also, right? If you can. And, you know, in many, so like combined with the PLG, I think it's going to allow me to get a lot farther with a lot fewer bodies than the VC strategy would, right? Like maybe even as far as they would, because like if you think about it this way, it's like I just need so fewer people in sales and marketing because Santosh and I have this social reach that is incredible and would take a marketing team of I don't even know how many people running ads and I don't even know how many places and trying to do SEO and content and all that stuff, like, and it wouldn't even get to like the trust and you'd have brand people. It just wouldn't even work nearly as well as it's working. And it's just two of us and we have some consultants helping us figure out what to write, right? So that's like I'm not even kidding you. I think we're more efficient than like we're getting more. I think we're getting more authority than like Apollo, and they probably have 100 people in marketing. Maybe not yet, but like we're probably close. You know, like
I mean, I don't trust Apollo that much, to be
yeah.
honest.
So like that's my point. It's like maybe they're like I doubt their impressions are. You know, we're getting like 2 or 3 million impressions a month. So like organic. It's super targeted. And those impressions, the quality of them is incredibly high because the thought leadership is so good, right? So like Apollo, they probably have 100 people in marketing. So like, I think we're doing better than that. And then like, it's like, what about sales? So having a free no touch product, it's like, instead of charging money and then taking that money and paying salespeople and paying for ad spend, if you just squash that and make it free, it's distributing itself. And I probably would have broken even on that part of it anyway, at least for a while, you know? So those two things I think are allowing us to get a huge amount of reach and distribution in a very inexpensive way, that so long as you can understand the metrics of the funnel, which we don't yet, but like it's looking promising. I mean, you saw the barometrics. It looks like somehow like 10% of people or something are converting, which without talking to them, it's crazy. But so long as you understand that part of it, I think it's look, my goal is like money high, people low. Right? Like that to me is a great business.
Simple as that.
Like
yeah.
Show me $100 million of ARR with 10 people. Like that is my paradise, right? Like I can't even imagine something better than that, right? Something like 6 Sense, which is like $200 million of ARR, and they're burning $100 million and they have 1,400 people. That is my worst nightmare. I think RB2B at 20 million ARR with under 10 people is a superior business to what I just described about 6 Sense. Everything about it.
100%.
I'm sure the 6 Sense CEO would probably rather have it. You know? So yeah, it's like, is it going to be like an enterprise sales motion and like, all this, is the revenue going to be as high? Like probably not, but like my goals are different,
Okay. I've heard that there are some other tools. Don't quote me on this. Just wondering, but like RB2B that get a higher match rate. What would you say to that? Like, has anyone complained about the match rate from RB2B or
so
not?
like, look, there was this great post that the Mad Kudu CEO put out yesterday, 2 days ago. Unbiased teardown of our B2B. He stacked it up against Clearbit. They were resolving 31% of traffic. We were resolving 8%. They had 60% accuracy. We had 85% accuracy. I asked them, what percentage of your traffic is US based? They said 40%. So Clearbit can resolve all that other 60% because it's international. So the percentage of the overall traffic that they resolve is much higher because they're getting all the international shit. We're only US. So it's really like around 20, right? If the 40% was 100%, then the 8% would be around 20. So I think that we're doing some stuff to try to raise it. We'll probably be able to raise it like another, 20%, not to 40, but like we'll probably raise it from 20 to like 25 or something. And so it's probably for most people between 15 and 30% at that point. I mean, there's a wide range of sort of things that can go into the match rate. We're also adding reverse IP lookup, which is only a company level, which I'm a little worried about because it's so confusing. Everybody else is doing this and we're doing that. And then we're going to add this, which is very confusing.
So long as you don't put light on it, it shouldn't be a problem.
I almost think we're going to like not even mention it until they're using the product, right? So like the whole tripwire is still just this person level website visitor identity. Like we're so different than everybody else. And then they get in, it's like, by the way, you can turn on reverse IP lookup also. So that will, and the interesting thing about their analysis, which I saw myself, we bought 6 Sense, we bought Clearbit, we looked at the overlap between the three pools is almost nothing because Clearbit does it so different than 6 Sense, and we do it completely different than either one of them. Like 6 Sense is getting this reverse IP lookup from the bid stream. Clearbit is getting this reverse IP lookup from their network of people on the product and looking at the identifier events on, basically the visitors to those websites. And then we're using publisher networks in the US. So the overlap between our reverse IP lookup and their reverse IP lookup will be small. Point is, if you can make Clearbit work, you could also make our reverse IP lookup work, and you're definitely going to be able to make our B2B work. So it's like, you should probably buy all of them, but if you can't make one of them work, then you shouldn't buy any of them and you should just use our free product and like be amused by who's on your website, right? So totally. That's the long-winded rebuttal to that. I think ultimately people will be using our B2B and something else because it's like the most accurate and it's the cheapest price. And then if you can also make Clearbit work, buy Clearbit. If you can also make Leadfeeder work, buy Leadfeeder, right? Like, but like try a bunch of them, do some real analysis on the overlap, and then figure out if those other tools are actually positive ROI for you also. And if they are, it's signal. Use the fucking signal, like as much like the signal is great. It's like a website visit is great. If you can figure out from a company who the probable visitor is, you should be using that signal,
100%. Awesome. Love it. Well, I gotta leave it here, but for the not free plan of our B2B, what does it include? What people should buy if you want to drop that? And then, where to find you. You mentioned a couple of things that you're launching. Today is June 14th, by the way, if you're still listening. So whatever references Adam made, just to be clear. But yeah, anything else that you want to announce or whatever?
Yeah, just go to rb2b.com, check me out on LinkedIn. And the reason you would buy the paid plan, so like the free plan gets you for 200 website visitors a month, a LinkedIn URL push to Slack. Pro gets you either more contacts than that, right? More than 200 a month, or repeat visitors, which are super valuable. The higher your ACV is, business email addresses, all the different integrations. But by the way, you can parse the Slack integration and do anything you want with it. So the integrations, the HubSpot integration's dope because it like ties it with the HubSpot tracking cookie. But yeah, that's basically it. It's like repeat visitors, hot pages, ICP filtering, integrations, stuff like that. Things that would really help sharpening up the sales process.
Nice. Okay, great conversation, man. It's been a pleasure to have you, and yeah, hopefully sometime we can have you back sooner
Hey
rather
man,
than later.
I'd love to. Thank you for having me. This is good.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you for listening to the Founder Video Podcast with Will Martin, and we'll see you on the next episode.